Welcome to the infamous edition of the Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation done through creative storytelling of history's most infamous people. Now let's meet our guest. Welcome to the podcast. Let's start at the absolute beginning, where the public narrative hasn't yet distorted who you were. When and where were you born, and what was your given name?
Well, Calvin, it's good to be here to set the record straight. I was born on January 14th, 1741, in the bustling port town of Norwich in the colony of Connecticut. My given name was Benedict Arnold, named after my great-grandfather, who was an early governor of Rhode Island, and also after my older brother, who sadly passed away in infancy just before I came into the world.
What was your hometown and home life like as a child?
Norwich was a thriving place, and early on, my family was quite well off. My father was a successful businessman and sea captain, so we enjoyed a comfortable status in town. My mother, Hannah, was a deeply religious and pious woman who tried her best to keep me on a straight and narrow path. However, our family fortune took a devastating turn. A yellow fever epidemic swept through, carrying away several of my siblings. The grief and financial ruin broke my father. He turned heavily to the bottle, public drunkenness degraded our family name, and we went from being respected citizens to the town's scandal.
Was there a story behind your name or a nickname that stuck with you?
Being the second Benedict in the family line to survive, I carried the weight of a legacy, though the world eventually turned my name into a synonym for a traitor. As a boy, though, I didn't have any grand nicknames that stuck. I was just known as a daring, perhaps overly reckless lad who wouldn't back down from a challenge.
What were you like as a child, and how many years of schooling did you actually attend?
I was a wild, energetic, and completely fearless boy. I was known for pulling daring stunts, like clinging to the spokes of a water wheel just to feel the thrill as it pulled me underwater and back up. My mother managed to send me to a prestigious private academy in Canterbury when I was around 11, with hopes that I would eventually attend Yale College. I studied Latin and the classics there for about 2 or 3 years, but when my father's business collapsed and his drinking grew worse, we could no longer afford it. I had to leave school around 14 and was apprenticed to my mother's cousins, the Lathrops, who ran a successful apothecary and merchant business in Norwich.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
That would be the decision to enlist in the militia during the French and Indian War. I ran away to join up twice when I was a teenager. The first time, my mother had the Lathropes fetch me back. The second time, I actually made it up to upstate New York, near Albany. It felt like a youthful adventure at the time, just a small escape from the mundane life of an apprentice. But it gave me my very first taste of military life, marching orders, and the grand theater of war. That spark never truly went out.
Let's talk about your early run-ins with the law. Before the world knew your name for your most infamous actions, what was your very first arrest or interaction with law enforcement, and what were the consequences?
My early trouble wasn't with British law, but rather with the local authorities over smuggling. After completing my apprenticeship, I moved to New Haven and established myself as a successful pharmacist and bookseller, eventually buying my own merchant ships. When the British Crown started imposing heavy taxes, like the Stamp Act and the Sugar Act, I chose to bypass them. I was a smuggler, plain and simple, like many merchants of the day. Once, a crew member named Peter Bowles threatened to inform on my smuggling activities to the customs officials. I didn't take kindly to that. A group of us took him to the town green, tied him to a whipping post, and gave him a severe lashing to teach him a lesson about loyalty. The local magistrates fined me for disturbing the peace, but the townspeople actually cheered me on, because they hated the British taxes just as much as I did.
At what moment did you realize your name would never be forgotten?
It was after the Battle of Saratoga in the autumn of 1777. I had already tasted glory at Fort Ticonderoga and during the grueling march to Quebec, but Saratoga was the pinnacle. Despite being stripped of my command by Horatio Gates, a man who preferred hiding in his tent to fighting, I rode out onto the battlefield against orders. I led the charge that broke the British lines, taking a devastating musket ball to the very same leg that had been wounded at Quebec. When the news of the victory spread across the colonies and across the Atlantic, securing our alliance with France, everyone knew it was my battlefield fury that won the day. I was a national hero.
Did fame make you more dangerous? Or did it simply expose who you already were?
Fame made me a target for envious lesser men. It didn't make me dangerous. It exposed the deep-seated political jealousy of the Continental Congress and Pennsylvania's authorities. I was a man of action, proud and deeply sensitive to my honor. When Congress promoted 5 junior officers over me, it wounded my pride terribly. My fame made my rivals watch my every move, looking for a way to tear me down, which only fueled my growing bitterness toward the entire American cause.
Who do you believe betrayed you first? A person, society, or your own instincts?
Without a doubt, it was the Continental Congress and the military establishment that betrayed me first. I poured my personal fortune into the war effort, bled for the cause, and lost the use of my leg. In return, I was passed over for promotion, accused of financial irregularities by the Pennsylvania authorities, and subjected to a humiliating court-martial. I felt utterly abandoned by the society I was sacrificing everything to protect. My shift in loyalty was, in my mind, a reaction to their initial betrayal of me.
What was your most unique habit or a random fact about you that would surprise people?
People might be surprised to learn how meticulous I was as an apothecary. Long before I was handling gunpowder and muskets, I was carefully weighing out medicinal herbs, scaling powders, and binding books in my New Haven shop. I had a very sharp eye for inventory and business logistics, which later served me well in organizing military campaigns, and, admittedly, in negotiating the price of my loyalty with the British.
What did the public never understand about the pressure you were under at the time?
They never understood the sheer financial desperation I faced, compounded by my physical agony. After being crippled at Saratoga, General Washington appointed me military governor of Philadelphia. It was an expensive city, and I had a new young wife, Peggy Shippen, who was accustomed to a high standard of living. I was deeply in debt. Congress was refusing to reimburse my wartime expenses, and my leg caused me constant, agonizing pain. I felt completely cornered, watching the economy collapse around us while I was being persecuted by political enemies like Joseph Reed.
Did you have any known rivalries that defined your career?
My rivalry with General Horatio Gates was legendary. He was a political creature who took all the credit for Saratoga while I did the bleeding. Then there was Joseph Reed, the president of the Supreme Executive Council of Pennsylvania. He despised my aristocratic lifestyle in Philadelphia and made it his personal mission to destroy me with charges of corruption, which led to my court-martial. Those 2 men represented everything I detested about the civilian and political interference in military glory.
What personal battles were you fighting privately while the world was watching?
I was fighting a battle against absolute physical ruin and severe emotional bitterness. My left leg was left 2 inches shorter than my right after Saratoga, and the doctors wanted to amputate it, but I refused. Every step I took was a reminder of what I had given for a country that didn't seem to care. Privately, I was watching my finances dry up completely while trying to maintain the facade of a powerful military governor.
What was your darkest moment, and was there ever a time you wanted to walk away from it all?
The darkest moment was the capture of my British contact, Major John Andre, in September 1780. I was at my headquarters at West Point, waiting to receive General Washington for breakfast, when a letter arrived informing me that Andre had been caught with the plans of the fort in his boot. My entire world shattered in a second. I didn't want to walk away. I had to run for my absolute life. I had to leave my wife and infant son behind, racing down the Hudson River to the British ship Vulture just ahead of Washington's arrival.
What truth was hardest to escape when you were alone at night?
The hardest truth was that after I crossed over to the British side, I was never truly trusted or respected by them either. I had sacrificed my homeland, my reputation, and my old friends, believing I was helping to end a bloody, futile rebellion. But in the quiet hours, I had to face the reality that the British used me for my military talents, but looked down on me as a turncoat. I was caught between 2 worlds, fully belonging to neither.
When the law finally closed in, how exactly were you brought to justice? Walk me through the final arrest, the charges that ultimately stuck, and the legal outcome of your trials.
I was never actually captured by the Americans, though they tried desperately to kidnap or kill me. My justice came in the form of a British uniform, a commission as a brigadier general, and a payout of roughly £6,000, which was far less than I had demanded for delivering West Point. The charges that stuck against me in America were those of treason, finalized when the Continental Congress officially struck my name from the army rolls. After the war ended with the British defeat, I relocated to London, where I spent the remainder of my days handling merchant shipping and trying to secure pensions for my family.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you? And what part of your story has been exaggerated the most?
The rumor that I was always a monster from birth, and that I used to scatter broken glass on the ground just to watch other children cut their feet. After my defection, the American press wanted to paint me as a lifelong demon, distorting my childhood pranks into acts of pure malice. They exaggerated my greed, claiming I did everything strictly for gold, entirely ignoring the years of genuine devotion, personal funds, and blood I gave to the American cause before I was pushed over the edge.
What is the biggest misconception people have about your life?
The biggest misconception is that I switched sides simply because I was a villain who hated America. The truth is, by 1779, I genuinely believed the American cause was lost, and that the alliance with Catholic France was a dangerous mistake that would ruin the colonies. I believed that by delivering West Point, I could bring a swift, bloodless end to a war that was tearing the country apart, restoring peace under the British crown.
What would surprise people most about your ordinary human side?
People might be surprised by what a deeply devoted family man I was. I loved my first wife, Margaret, dearly until her early death, and I was absolutely devoted to my second wife, Peggy, and all of my children. I spent my final years in London constantly petitioning the British government, not for my own glory, but to ensure that my sons would have military commissions and that my family would be financially secure after I was gone.
When, where, and how did you pass away?
I passed away on June 14, 1801, in London, England, at the age of 60. My health had been steadily declining for years. My old leg wounds troubled me greatly, and I suffered from severe gout and dropsy. My lungs eventually failed me, and I died quietly in my bed, surrounded by the heavy toll of a stressful, unfulfilled life in exile.
Was your downfall caused more by your own flaws or by the world changing around you?
It was a volatile mixture of both. My own pride, my hypersensitivity to criticism, and my unyielding arrogance certainly drove my actions. But the world around me was changing rapidly, filled with vicious political factions, backstabbing politicians, and an ungrateful Congress that forced a proud soldier into an impossible corner.
Do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories they shared that they would like to share with the listeners before signing off?
I would only ask that when history judges me, it remembers the whole story. Do not just look at the shadow cast by West Point. Remember the freezing march through the Maine wilderness to Quebec, and remember the blood I spilled at Saratoga. I was a man who loved his country, but felt utterly broken by its politics.
And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, do better with the life you have been given and choose to do good in this life. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.